else? Well, very well. Is that all? Well then, say your rosary and 15 Hail Marys. Yes, my Father. He prays and bathes in prayers of gratitude at the white rail near the blood-red carpet that runs to the saintly, stainless altar of white and gold. God is merciful, and God above all is kind, and kind is kind, and kindness
San Louis de
is all.
Francis, cellar-like basement church on Boisvert and West 6th. For me, the first 4 years of my life are permeant and gray, with the memory of a kindly, serious face bending over me and blessing me. The world a hatch of Dulio's saintliness, and him the big chicken, Gerard, who warned me to be kind to little animals and took me by the hand on forgotten little walks. John Cleland Holmes' Home in October. Look it up. It's a beautiful account of the wake funeral taking place here in Lowell of Kerouac. So I'm going to read the opening section of Gerard, and if anybody wants to take a peek at first edition afterwards, feel free. Gerard Dulioz was born in 1917, a sickly little kid with a rheumatic heart and many other complications that made him ill for the most part of his life, which ended in July 1926 when he was 9, and the nuns of San Louis de France parochial school were at his bedside to take down his dying words, because they'd heard his astonishing revelations of heaven delivered in catechism class on no more encouragement than it was his turn to speak. Saintly Gerard, his pure and tranquil face, the mournful look of him, the piteousness of his little soft shroud of hair falling down his brow and swept aside by the hand over blue, serious eyes.
And they did have a wake in St. Petersburg. My understanding, it wasn't very well attended. And they had a second one here, and that was at the Archambault Funeral Home in Lowell. Some notable Beat Generation folks were at the funeral. Allen Ginsberg was here, Gregory Corso, Peter Orlovsky, and a lot of other friends and family members. And the funeral was at St. Jean-Baptiste Church. And Father Armand Morissette, whose nickname is Spike, read from the book of Revelations in the Bible. He said, "They shall rest from their labors, for they shall take their works with them." I thought that was pretty significant. The pallbearers at the funeral were Joe Chaput, did I say that right?
Yep.
Tony Sampas, Billy Kumancelis, Harvey Kerouac, and Allen Ginsberg. That's what I know of. There were just 5.
The grotto is hugely moved ahead of us, to the right, that baleful night. It belonged to the orphanage on the corner of Pawtucket Street and School Street at the head of the White Bridge. A big grotto is their backyard, mad, vast, religious. The 12 stations of the cross, little individual 12 altars set in. You go in front, kneel, everything but incense in the air. The roar of the river, mysteries of nature, fireflies in the night, flickering to the waxy stare of statues. I knew Dr. Sachs was there flowing in the back docks with his wild and pinky cape. Culminating was a gigantic pyramid of steps upon which the cross itself poked phallically up with its poor burden, the Son of Man, all skewered across in his agony and fright. Buddhist, Dylan asked, what do we do here? He said, well, we go over here, you put some money in here, $2. I think it's more now. Then you take one of these, and you light it. Never mind. So you light it, then you say a prayer, which you did, and then Dylan got up, and he took the candle. Ginsberg said, no, that's not the way it works. You leave it there. He's going to pray for you, okay? But Dylan said, well, I paid for it. Why can't I bring it? And all of them had become citizens. I know. My grandfather was one of them. You know, nobody was rushed into anything. My wife's grandfather came here in 1896, and he didn't become a citizen until 1944. So, you know, it's not like it is now. It's a big turmoil now, you know. So they gathered 2,000 people here. And they have a mass here, and you've got it, okay? Okay, maybe some of you didn't take French. All right, so I'll read it in English. In the year of our Lord 1911, thanks to the generosity of the parishioners of St. Joseph's Parish, and under the direction of the Reverend Father Oblates of Mary Immaculate, this grotto was erected in honor of Our Lady of Lourdes in French, protectress of the Franco-American orphanage, which really was a castle, but then there was an addition. You can tell that the addition is a big part of it. Okay? And when I was young, and many others, on Sunday afternoons when it's nice and warm, they bring us over here and take a walk. Okay? And it was a mix of terror and warmth. It was warm because it was, you know, it was a beautiful place, a nice place, and you know, Jesus was here, and he died for all our sins, right? And that was a terror, because nobody wanted to go to the orphanage, because we had stories about how it was over there, where you didn't have your bedroom, you know, there was rows of beds and dormitories, and our parents would say, well, you know, some of your friends that you see only on the weekend there, they go there, you know, during the week. They had to, because the soldiers were fighting either in the Pacific or in in Europe, because this was in the 40s. You know, I was born in '34, so you know when you're doing this at the age of 10 or 11, you know you understand a little bit, okay? And no, you didn't want to come over here because there were some mean ladies in there. In '86, we were all here, and I was standing here and I was talking to them and on my right was Allen Ginsberg, and Gregory Corso was over there, and Brian, I think you were here too. Okay. And Gregory looks up like this at Jesus, and he goes, And Ginsberg read what he said, and he says, no, all we know is that he was circumcised. The early part of the century, around 1910, a priest by the name of Wattel, W-A-T-E-L-L-E, who was directly from Belgium, was named pastor of the French parish, and he was in his mid-30s. Full of energy, piss, vim, and vinegar, right? And he had the idea of creating something close to what existed in Lourdes, the grotto in Lourdes, where supposedly the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to a young girl, Bernadette. And the only thing he said was, it has to be as close as possible to what exists in Lourdes. Well, I happened to go there in 1964 because I was on a government junket for French teachers. And we went to Lourdes, and I said, wow, this is really a close copy of it. But they added something to it over here over the years, like this was the addition. It's sort of a way of the cross that centers around the Blessed Virgin Mary, I think. But these stairs over here, if you notice that the handrail is like this, that's because you don't go up with these, you go up with these. And at every step you say, Notre Père qui es aux cieux, je vous salue Marie, gloire soit au Père. Then you go up, just like you do in Montreal at l'Oratoire Saint-Joseph. You know, that's what people do. People who who are religious, you know. I explain to you so I don't have to do it. You don't want me to do it, do you? Because my knees are hurting. Okay. All right. All right, you follow me now because we're all going to go up. See, the idea is you make a wish when you get up there, but you don't tell anybody, not even your wife, okay, or your boyfriend. And then you come back down and you say a prayer. You light a candle, you know, and then you leave, okay? So we're going to go up here and I'll tell you a little story, okay?
Mix of Catholicism and superstition.
I got here before you did. And the sketching that he does is significant because in 3-4 words he describes that doctor. Dr. Victor Rochette was his name, this Dr. Simpson. And since he was French, I interviewed my mother and I asked her, I said, did you know Dr. Rochette? She said, yes. She says, I said, what did he look like? She says, oh, he was tall and gray-haired. Right? I mean, I'm creating. And they have a right to be narcissistic. You know, it reminds me of Victor Hugo. He writes this long poem, and he starts, Le siècle avait 2 ans quand je suis né. The century was 2 years old when I was born. And here's the way he says it. It was in Centerville I was born. In Pawtucketville saw Dr. Sachs. Across the wide basin to the hill on Lupine Road, March 1922, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon of a red all over supper time. As drowsily beers were in Moody and Lakeview saloons, and the river rushed with her cargoes of ice over red and slick rocks, and on the shore the reeds swayed among mattresses and cast-off boots of time. And lazily pieces of snow dropped plunk from bagging branches of black, thorny, oily pine in their thaw. And beneath the wet snows of the hillside, receiving the sun's lost rays, the melts of winter mixed with roars of Merrimack, where the popping happened in 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was on the second floor. And in 1986, when Ginsberg came here for our first activity, we were all here, and he says, can we go in? So we knocked at the door, and we all went out. So they lived on in this building for 7 years. They lived on the first floor, 19, 18, 19, and 20. And then that one became empty, number 9, for the next 4 years. And it included 1922. And in those days,
just what a treat it is to be back in Lowell. And of course, for the readers of the Lowell Sun, Jack worked for them. He was still a teenager, and he wrote some wonderful sports columns. And the paper still stands at that beautiful sign you see at Lowell Sun, pretty much the way it was when he was growing up. The town of Lowell still has enough of the beautiful things that Jack wrote about that are still here. And just yesterday, I went to the high school that Jack went to, and they had a poetry contest with over 40 young people reading their poetry and getting support for it. What a beautiful thing. What a great testament to Jack to show that his work fosters creativity and is honored in his hometown. Not many people can ever say that. There's this beautiful part of his writing, not a statue of Jack, but his writings. Frank McCourt, the great writer, told me that he was, after having a statue in his hometown. He said, no way. And he said, why, Mr. McCord? He said, I don't like statues. And he said, well, how can that possibly be? And he said, because I hate pictures. So in Jack's case, he didn't have a statue. He has this beautiful monument of his writing in stone and a beautiful living example of his creativity with a group of teenagers at the high school we went to writing their own poetry.
In the alleys of New York imagination, to Popeye the Sailor and the Sea Hag and the meaty gunwales of boats, to Capneezy and washed tubs screaming with ecstasy over canned peaches on a cannibal isle, to Wimpy looking cross-eyed for a juicy hamburger such as they don't make no more, to Jigs ducking before a household furniture flying World War II, when teenagers drank beer on Friday nights at lake ballrooms and worked off their hangovers playing baseball on Saturday afternoon, followed by a dive in the brook. And our fathers wore straw hats like W.C. Fields. It goes back to the completely senseless babble of the Three Stooges, the ravings of the Marx Brothers, the tenderness of Angel Harpo. It goes back to the inky ditties of old cartoons, Crazy Cat with the irrational brick, to Laurel and Hardy and his Foreign Legion, to Count Dracula and his smile, to Count Dracula shivering and hissing back before the cross, to the Golem horrifying the persecutors of the ghetto, to the quiet sage in the movie about India, unconcerned about the plot, to the giggling old Tao Chinaman trotting down the sidewalk of old Clark Gable, Shanghai, to the holy old Arab warning the hot bloods that Ramadan is near, to the werewolf of London, a distinguished doctor in his velour smoking jacket, smoking his pipe over a lamplit tome on botany, and suddenly hair's grown on his hands. His cat hisses, and he slips out into the night with a cape and a slanty cap like the caps of people in breadlines.
Pour tous nos amis qui viennent de Canada, bienvenue ici dans cette belle ville de l'Ouest. Et j'espère que vous pourrez écrire les choses pour nous aussi un jour. Remember above all things, kid, that to write is not difficult, not painful. It comes to you with ease, that you could whip up a little tale in no time, that you are sincere about it. And when you want to express a truth, it is not difficult, not painful, but easy, grateful, full of smooth power, as if you were a writing machine with a store of literature that's boundless, enormous, endless, and rich. For this is true. This is so. Do not forget it in your gloomier moments. Make your stuff warm. Drive it home American-wise. Don't mind critics. Don't mind the stuffy academic thesis of scholars. They don't know what they're talking about. They're way off the track. They're cold. You are warm. You're red hot. You could write all day. Any place becomes your hometown just by appreciating it. And Jack's Franco-American heritage was so important. I'm going up to Quebec in 2 weeks for a festival there where they love Jack. In fact, his cousin, Jack Kerouac, gave me this jacket with the Kerouac family's patch on it. And he's as appreciated there as he is in Lowell. And Roger Brunel and I went up to Montreal and to Quebec. Suddenly you can see that connection. I wanted to mention it because lots of times literary authorities only mention that he spoke a kind of French that wasn't acceptable. And secondly, coming from Lowell, Massachusetts, a mill town, from the Franco-American heritage was some kind of impediment that he overcame. And actually that source of richness fills every page that he wrote, filled his heart, and also made him so wonderful and warm to be with, because he loved his roots, he loved his family, he loved his town, and he could see this beautiful country in a very special way.